Hello everyone, my name is Sanjay and I'm a consultant with the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. As part of the work that I and CHRI have been doing on police reforms across South Asia, we have come to realize that one of the major impediments to rule of law and proper governance taking root in South Asia is the fact that the police perform so poorly in their job. And what we have discovered through our work is that the police are incredibly corrupt, abusive, and non-responsive to the needs of people throughout the region. And this is not something which is specific to any one country, but rather exists throughout the region. And as a result of this conduct, or misconduct rather, there is a tremendous deal of mistrust between the police and the community. The disconnect between the public and the police is quite toxic. So toxic, in fact, that it's very rare to find somebody in South Asia who is willing to go and register an FIR with the police at night or at all, or to have women visit the police station either at night or at all. And these are concrete examples of where the community's mistrust of the police has resulted in dysfunctional policing throughout South Asia. There are reform efforts underway across the region. There are attempts in Pakistan, for instance, to try to reform the police. One example has been the Police Order of 2002. That was an attempt to bring about better policing in that country. However, all of the public police accountability mechanisms, institutions that were created through the Police Order of 2002 have not been functional, and they haven't been given the resources that they required in order to be functional. And in India, you have the Prakash Singh case, which was a culmination of years of litigation, whereby the Supreme Court of India ruled that there are certain base elements to police accountability and proper police functioning that need to be abided by. And this ruling, in letter and spirit, has been ignored by states across the country. In Bangladesh, although the police reform program has been doing a very good job in trying to improve policing in that country, the truth is that the government has shown little interest in updating the antiquated 1861 Act, Police Act, to make it more modern and responsive to the challenges of policing in the 21st century. And this hasn't changed even with the government newly elected at the end of 2009 and at the end of 2008 and at the beginning of 2009. So even though there have been numerous attempts to reform the police through commissions and whatnot, the truth is that very little has been done in the way of police reform in South Asia. And as former Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill in the US once said, all politics is local. In that same way, all policing is local as well. And in order to overcome the intense distrust that exists between the public and the police, a bridge needs to be built between these two stakeholders. And to date, this has not been something that has been largely focused on within the region. In order for community policing, for this bridge to be built, there are three important elements that need to be focused on. One, there needs to be greater interaction between the public and the police. As I've mentioned already, the truth is that there's very little interaction at the moment between the two because, frankly speaking, the public are often scared of the police. So if the police and the public are to have any proper and healthy relationship built on trust and respect, this is going to necessarily require that the public and the police are far more interactive in their relationship with one another. The second thing is that there needs to be greater inclusion of women. In the research that I've undertaken by going around the region to learn more about community policing, it's abundantly clear that the most important stakeholder, the most important constituency who is ignored in the relationship between the community and the police typically are women. And it's quite shocking that this would be the case, given that many of the issues of the day with respect to poor policing are related to gendered issues. And so it's incumbent on either the police or the government structures to actively include women in any attempt to do community policing. The third aspect to community policing that makes it relevant for South Asia, or that needs to be considered in the context of South Asia, is that there are tremendous resource constraints on the police within this region. They have very little in the way of money to either pay salaries or to even have basic hardware. And because of this, there is often the explanation or the excuse given that community policing would just be too costly a venture for the police to engage in this region. But the interesting thing about community policing is that if it's done properly, it's simply a reorientation of policing. Thus, it's not necessary to inject or input a great deal in the way of hardware or money in order to make it work. It literally is a recognition and an understanding that community policing is the kind of policing that we need to deliver in this region. So if you only reorient the nature of the policing and not think of it as something to invest a great deal of money in order to make it work, then it completely changes the dynamic of whether community policing is actually feasible or not. And I think what you will find through the course of this online conference are some examples of how community policing has been achieved in the region without an inordinate investment of new resources into the project. And I think the other sort of fourth element to making community policing work that I've discovered in the research I've done is that any proper community policing project requires that the police come to the community with a genuine and sincere desire to make this initiative work. My experience has been that power resides with the police, and therefore it's a little naive to think that the community can come to the police and suggest that community policing be done and have it be done properly. The fact is that because the police typically have the power and, frankly speaking, the authority to use lethal force, that power dynamic means that the police, with enlightened police leadership, should sincerely and genuinely come to the community and suggest that we together work on community policing that could be beneficial to both the delivery of policing services and public safety. What you will see in the various examples that will be profiled during this online conference is that there are specific experiments that have been successful. Specifically, Kerala police have done a very good job with community policing, and increasingly the Bangladesh police are also doing a very good job with community policing. And I think these provide some insight into how such projects can be undertaken in South Asia with the specific contextual realities of the region. The purpose of this conference is to share these various experiences so that we can learn from each other. And I do truly believe that community policing has a great deal to offer South Asia, notwithstanding the tremendous issues of governance and rule of law that do exist in the region. And I'm hoping that after looking at this presentation and opening up the conversation in a forum, we can start engaging on some of the specifics of how community policing could be implemented in the region, and therefore have a dialogue begin in a topic that typically hasn't been covered. Thank you.